Hello, welcome back to the Fruit of Grisaia. Yep, Makina went all. I should probably go without saying at this point. The objector was Amane. I fail to see the problem here. When the designated time arrives, you head into the field. That's what a job is. Watching as I dig into my breakfast of cold pasta with tomato and basil sauce, Amane contorts her face with an exaggerated display of sadness. Well, we stopped by a convenience store on the road this morning, and she gobbled down a bagel and an egg sandwich with a bottle of milk. I doubt she's starving. I mean, the girl said she was so hungry she couldn't move. So you say, Amane, but it's not like you want to see her groaning with hunger yourself. Yeah, my bad. That's why I'm heroically eating her share of the breakfast you made, see? Now that you mention it... Matter of fact, eating outside often makes me realize just how good the stuff Amane makes really is. Haha, he admits Amane makes good food. The pasta I'm working on right now is pretty simple stuff, but I have to admit it's delicious. More progress. You really can't make anything taste good, Amane. It might not be worth much coming from a man with notoriously dull taste buds, but I was being completely sincere. Like I said, an egg sandwich, a bagel, and a bottle of milk. Good guess. Oh, she's ready to be Makina's mom. That's right. The milk was a 200 milliliter bottle. Don't remember the brand, but there was something about packed full of calcium on the label. It should be fine. She was on the bicycle for a good hour burning that off. You're seriously diligent.
ちなみにあんたに出してる食事は1日だいたい2200キロカロリー以内にまとめてるよ。
What, you're pointing out my diet as well?
だってあんたの普段の食事見てたら、なんか1500キロカロリーぐらいしか取ってないんだもの。それじゃ痩せちゃうよ。
Wait, is this why you're constantly feeding me pumpkin?
かぼちゃを舐めるなよ。かぼちゃは栄養の塊、まさに無敵の健康食品。かぼちゃがあれば10年は戦える。あれはいいものです。
Okay. Good to know. Are pumpkins really that amazing?
ちなみに私のこの体型はかぼちゃダイエットのおかげで維持できてるんだよ。
Pumpkins are very healthy.
たっぷりでお肌もツヤツヤ、活性酸素も除去してくれるし、体温が上がって基礎代謝が高まるから痩せるし。
Wow.
何より食物繊維が豊富でいいこと尽くし。
You sound like a fresh recruit to some pumpkin-themed cult, but they do taste good, so whatever.
でしょ。そこで今日のお昼はかぼちゃの冷たいスープを。スオさん、ちょっといいかしら。何？頼まれていたもの、いくつか調べておいたけど、結局どうするの？ネットで買うの？値段はどうだった？そうね、店頭価格と比べるとおおむね2000円から2500円の値引きね。送料を考えるとトントンか500円から800円のお得ってところかしら。微妙だな。
What are you people talking about?
ああ、なんかね、マキナの話を聞いてたら私もパンが焼いてみたくなって。パン焼き器を買おうかと思って榊さんにネット通販の値段を調べてもらってたの。ボーナス前で新型が発表になる時期だから、一つ前のモデルがぐっと値落ちしてるわ。買うなら今がチャンスだと思うけど。
Interesting.
古いのと新しいので値段と性能の差はどれぐらい？そうね、値段の差は8000円から1万6000円。性能についてはほとんど変わらないよね。デザインがちょっと良くなったくらい。じゃあ古いモデルでもいいかな。スオさんの欲しがっていたバゲットが焼けるタイプのものは同時に焼ける数に差がある程度で、性能はあまり変わらないものが8000円ほど安い値段で売っているわ。ネットのストアオークションで見ると同じものが1万6000円安い値段でスタートしてる。でもそれって結局値段は上がっちゃうんでしょ？希望即決価格に設定されている値段を見るとよそより1円安く出品されているから、よそで買うより高くなるということはないわ。ただ注意しないと送料が別途かかるケースがあるけど、今回見ているストアは送料が無料のようね。
Assuming the price will probably end up somewhere in the middle, it's still 8,000 cheaper than buying it in the store. You're surprisingly good at this sort of thing for a rich girl, Sakaki.
私としては経済に精通していると受け取ってもらいたいところなのだけれど。
I see. You've got a good nose for money, Sakaki. Oh, they're really thinking a lot of all of this.
別に構わないけれど。
They're really managing their money.
それにしても8000円の差額か。どうしよう。頑張れば値切れない数字じゃないのよね。素直にネットで買うか、それとも店頭で形地放り出すか悩むわ。普通にネットで買ったらどう？クレジットカードは持っているのでしょ？まあそれでもいいんだけど、やっぱり商店街の電気屋さんで買おうかと思って。確かに現物を手にして買う方が安心感はあると思うけど、今時はネット通販もほとんどノートラブルが普通よ。そういうことじゃなくて、お店で買えば機械が調子悪かったりうっかり壊しちゃった時でもすぐに対応してくれるでしょ。多少高くてもお店で買うメリットってそういう部分だと思うし、そういうサービスを買うことだと思うのね。それに前にスチームオーブンを買った時に、次何か買う時もここで買うからって言って値切っちゃった手前、よそで買うのも気が引けるしね。今回はお店で買うよ。せっかく調べてくれたのにごめんね、榊さん。私は別にあなたがどこで買おうと構わないし、大した手間ではないから気にしないで。
But anyway, it sounds like online shopping has come a long way. The world's getting a lot more convenient these days.
今は何でもネットの時代よ。確かに便利にはなったけれど、通信には障害がつきものだし。あまり高級的な手段とも思えないから、依存しすぎるとしっぺ返しが大きいのもネットなのよ。
They say that inconvenience is the mother of ingenuity, but I guess that's no reason to avoid the convenient option when it's already there. By the way, can you get anything you want off these online shopping sites?
何でもというと語弊があるけれど、合法なものは大抵手に入るし、非合法スレスレなものも条件次第ではかなりの確率で買うことができるのよね。
I see.
何よユージ、あんたなんか変なもの買おうとしてんじゃないでしょうね。
No, I was thinking I'd buy Makina a little toy, but it's not exactly urgent. I was just a little curious.
おもちゃならあの子もういっぱい持ってるわよ。あんまり気軽に変なもの買い与えないでよね。これ以上私の部屋にガラクタを持ち込まれたら寝る場所がなくなっちゃう。
Dolly noted.
それにしてもマキナ、ちゃんとアルバイトやってるのかな。パン屋のご主人には何かあったらすぐに連絡してくれるように伝えてはあるのでしょ。連絡がないということは何も問題はないということよ。
それはそうなんだけど。
Worrying isn't going to change anything at this point. What will be, will be.
どうしてそんなに落ち着いていられるのよ。心配じゃないの？
Not in the least, actually. Why?
だってあの子知らない人と喋れないんだよ。
Yeah, I mentioned that as well, but Makina said she's going to try her best to get over it.
頑張ってもダメな時だってあるでしょうに。
We can cross that bridge when we come to it. Don't worry, I think Makina's going to handle this just fine.
やっぱ私は待ってるだけなんて無理。後でこっそり様子見に行ってこようかな。やめておきなさい。保護も過ぎれば信用されていないとイリスさんのプライドを傷つける結果になるわ。そりゃ分かってるけど心配なんだもの。もしバイト中に倒れて寝ちゃってたらどうすんのよ。
I told the owner to knock her awake if that happens, so it shouldn't be a problem. Any more importantly, how about you show a little trust in the girl? And more importantly, dude, this is... まあ、おおむねにおいて風見くんの言うことに同意はしておこうかしら。やっぱ私って過保護なのかな。 I feel this. The way I see it, slightly overprotective is just about right for a mother. The world's got too many parents who can't or won't look out for their kids. Can't hurt to overcompensate a little in the opposite direction. It's a fair point. But I think Makina's passivity and fearfulness toward others has been largely the product of her own negative self-image as an incompetent idiot. Over the last few days, I've taught the girl quite a few things, and I've tried to point her toward ways she can develop her potential as a human being. I intend to continue doing so from now on. And although I don't think my actions are the sole cause, recently Makina started to show proactive interest in many different things. She seems almost eager to get her hands dirty. Choked a little. Experimentation begins with the willingness to touch, to explore something new with your own hands. Sometimes you might not like the way it feels in your palm. Sometimes you'll jerk your hand back in pain. Even so, that pain's a new discovery in its own right, a lesson you can't really understand except through experience. They say infants put everything and anything in their mouths to learn the taste of poison, but Makina's been raised in the equivalent of a sterile clean room. Now she's finally beginning to explore the taste of the world through her own experience, her hands. Yes. I won't deny that my declaration of complete confidence was largely a bluff, but I don't think I'm raising a kid who can't figure out the difference between a bitter green pepper and a bottle of arsenic. Soon enough, evening came. There's really no right way to raise a kid. There are a lot of different ways. Although her first shift at her new job ended some time ago, Makina hasn't returned. Amane, who suffered through the day in a state of constant distracted worry, finally broke down and called the bakery. As it turns out, the girl had left right on time some 30 minutes ago. This prompted Amane to shout, "Ah!" and attempt a dramatic leap to her feet with the cell phone still pressed to her ear. But unfortunately, the woman had been sitting on the couch with her long hair tucked under her sizable buttocks. As her head snapped backward with a painful yank, Amane let out a long groan of uncertain meaning, something along the lines of, "Ah," then turned her impotent anger on the target closest at hand. "Hey, Yuuji, why didn't you pick up Makina? Get going!" "What? It's not like I sent the girl off for first day at kindergarten. Makina's not a child, right? She'll come wandering back on her own eventually." Such were my honest thoughts on the matter, but faced with the sheer irritable fury in Amane's slightly teary eyes as she rubbed her scalp, I couldn't find the courage to voice them. Sighing inwardly, I pushed myself up off my seat. I'm thinking she saw some huge dog, a Great Pyrenees or something like that. Then latched onto the thing and buried herself in its fur, completely losing track of time. In that scenario, the owner would have to continue walking their dog at some point, meaning Makina should come back on her own eventually. But depending on how things play out, she might tag along on the rest of the walk, following them all the way home. Eventually ending up in a stranger's living room, snacking on sweet cakes and tea, a disturbingly plausible scenario. Of course, families with big, poofy dogs like that tend to be fairly well off, so I doubt she'd be in much danger of a financially motivated crime. But on the other hand, there's no guarantee she won't have run into the clutches of some cybernetic multimillionaire with twisted interest in childish young bodies. My conclusion, it would be best to swiftly track the girl down, have her thank them for the cakes, then promptly withdraw. I retrieved my private cell phone from my jacket pocket. Of course, we tried calling Makina before anything else, but her cell phone went straight to voicemail every time. Amane and I had been uncertainly pondering our next move when a savior known as Sakaki Yumiko descended from the ceiling on a golden chariot. As saviors go, she might be a bit on the cranky side, but today she brought us tidings of comfort and joy. Apparently, Makina's cell phone was equipped with a remote tracking function in case of loss or theft. We immediately set about tracking the phone's location through its GPS. As it turns out, she was keeping perfectly still in what looked like a corner of the shopping district near the station. After consulting a map, we confirmed the girl wasn't in a residential area, just sitting by the side of a public road. Apparently, my gobbling down cakes in a rich person's house hypothesis was off the mark. Given this new information, my next thought was that the girl had either dropped her cell phone or simply dozed off on the spot, but it seems like it was the latter. Makina, hey, Makina, wake up. She was sleeping on a bench. For the time being, I decided not to take the drastic smack upside the head solution to this dilemma, opting for a gentle shake of the shoulder. Makina's head sways a little in response, but there's no sign of her waking up. Worn out from your first day on the job? The thought leaves me a little hesitant to wake the girl up forcibly. For the moment, I decide to contact Amane at my cell.
はい、こちらイリス・マキナ捜索本部本部長周防天音。
This is Field Operative Kasami Yuuji. I've discovered and secured the mark.
あ、よかった。マキナ見つかったのね。
Yeah, little punk's taking a nice nap on a bench in front of the station. Dude, I will love Amane's writing.
もう起こした？起きそう？
Not really. I tried calling out to her, but the girl seems to be sleeping pretty deeply. I'll wait a little longer, but it shouldn't be a problem either way. If necessary, I'll just carry her back to the dorm.
Makina, 8時から見たいテレビがあるって言ってたから、それまでには連れて帰ってあげて。
Understood. Nothing further to report. I'm ending the call.
お疲れ様。
Alright then. Hey, Makina, can you wake up for me? Once again, I give Makina's shoulder a shake while calling out quietly. She does respond in the form of a dopey little grunt, but it doesn't seem to have brought her any closer to regaining consciousness. Guess I'll have to carry her back. The girl's not exactly heavy, shouldn't be much of an issue. I glance at my watch. We've still got nearly 2 hours left until 8, and I doubt it'll take longer than 30 minutes to get back to the dorm, even if I'm carrying her on my back. More than enough time. But seriously, could you be any more defenseless? Considering the girl was kidnapped as a child, she's surprisingly incautious. Then again, there's not really much danger in a public street with heavy pedestrian traffic. At worst, you might have a wallet or bag stolen while you sleep, but in modern Japan, even that sort of petty crime isn't very common. This really is a peaceful country, but on the other hand, the apathy of the passerby who don't even bother to wake up a little girl dozing off in the sun is also very typically Japanese. In any case, I can't just let the girl sleep here forever. For one thing, the longer we stay like this, the higher the odds of someone reporting some shady-looking degenerate trying to cop a feel off a sleeping kid to our friendly neighborhood police station. I should really either be waking her up immediately or getting her on my back and beating a prompt retreat, but... Watching Makina draw soft, regular breaths, I can't help wanting to just let her be. I know this might sound a little strange, but I don't dislike watching women sleep. Doesn't matter if it's a ridiculously powerful and crudely masculine woman, or a shaggy-headed blonde who spends every day, waking moment, carping like she's her darn mother. When their eyes are closed and their mouth is shut, they're cute. Same goes for Makina, it seems. Normally, watching the girl just makes you wonder if she's burned out a couple 100,000 synapses in her brain, but sleeping quietly like this, she's genuinely adorable. Oh, Yuuji. He says some surprisingly nice things sometimes. You awake, Makina? You were really taking your time getting back, so I came to pick you up.
そうか。ごめんね。なんか私、お仕事終わったら急に眠くなっちゃって。
Makina opens her mouth wide and lets out a high-pitched, vaguely feline yawn. Worn out from your first day on the job?
なんかね、初めてのことばっかりで覚えるのが大変でね。
Good job, girl.
すっごく楽しかったのよ。
Hey, it's good to hear. I think you'll stick with it. Hey, if you can go do that job, anyone can. Although I've been making a conscious effort to trust Makina, I was pretty worried deep down. But from the way she's talking, it sounds like she was able to concentrate on the job. You were even doing it with those different colored socks, too.
仕事好きかも。いろんなパンがあって、いろんなお客さんが来て、今日ね、いろんな人といろんなお話をしたのよ。
What sort of people did you meet?
いっぱいいたよ。普通の OL さんとか、子供を連れたお母さんとか、それにフィリピンのお姉さんとか、中国とか台湾のお姉さんとか。
Sounds like you got quite the Pan-Asian clientele in there.
なんかね、店長に聞いたら、外国の人はスーパーとかで買い物しにくいんだって。だから個人商店に来るんだって。
You don't say. Come to think of it, this foreigner I knew once told me something. A while ago, the tabloids and TV news shows made a habit of constantly reporting on organized criminal activity perpetrated by a small number of illegal immigrant workers. As a result, people got this fixed idea about groups of foreign shoplifters roaming the supermarkets, and anyone who doesn't look Japanese enough still gets the stinkies. Stink eye. Stinkies. Can make your weekly shopping trip feel really unpleasant.
いいね。お仕事いっぱい頑張ったからって、店長さんにメロンパンいっぱいもらったのよさ。
The paper sack Makina is clutching in her arms is packed full of pastries. Judging from the intense sweet fragrance wafting from the buns, they're still hot from the oven.
お腹が空いたから帰りに食べようかと思ったんだけどね。どうせならみんなで食べようと思って。パパとかアマネーとかユミちゃんにチルチルにサッチンにチズチズ、いつもお世話になってる人にね、いつもありがとうってメロンパン食べてって言おうと思って。でも帰る途中でどうしても眠くなっちゃって、姉ちゃん私ね、いつもみんなにはありがとうって感謝してるのよ。でもその気持ちをどう伝えていいのかわかんなくて。でもね、今日それが分かった気がするのよさ。一生懸命頑張って、これが私の頑張った結果なんだよってメロンパンを食べてもらえば、きっと気持ち伝わるよね。お礼の気持ちって、感謝の気持ちって、きっとこういうことなんだろうなって初めて分かった気がする。それがね、今日一番嬉しかったこと。
Oh, I see. You did good, Makina. I'm sure they'll be happy. Like always, I drop a hand onto Makina's head and scratch vigorously, only to discover that her hair is moist with perspiration. Although it's gotten a little cooler now that the sun's sinking, napping outside on a summer day probably had something to do with it. But when I think of it as sweat the girl shed in her labors, for some reason there's a tight feeling in my chest. She really did do her best. As the thought runs through my mind with a new ring of conviction, I look down to find Makina's head nodding back and forth unsteadily. That's alright, you can sleep. But can you get on my back first? I'll carry you to the dorm. Yeah, a lot of kindness goes a long way. A little kindness, even. As the street fills with the pinkish glow of sunset and the cries of cicadas, I take the bag of melon bones from Makina's hands, then help her onto my back. Her body's small, light, and ridiculously warm, as always. I can already feel my back growing damp with sweat. The girl's fast asleep before I can take a single step. She breathes through her nose steadily and quietly, every exhalation tickling the nape of my neck. This habit of dozing off anywhere at any time is, as Amane puts it, probably a mild case of narco whatever. But it's not anything that unusual for me, since my big sister was just as abrupt a sleeper. I think Makina's fundamentally pretty similar to her in this respect, actually. My sister's brain ran on a higher octane fuel than most people's, but the mileage wasn't great. Sometimes she'd sleep more than 12 hours in a single day. Oh, been there. I've done that before. A lot. And other times I'd look over after a brief pause in a conversation to find she'd nodded off, after which she'd wake up only a minute or two later. The only major point of difference is that she would nod off at fixed times every day. Makina's a lot less predictable, requiring much more careful attention. Anyway, from what my sister told me when I was young, the heavy sleeping was necessary so that her unconscious mind could process the large amounts of information she absorbed while awake. In other words, nothing to get too worried about. Whoops. Shifting the melon buns to a precarious one-arm grip, I reach around to halt Makina's limp slide down my back. After pushing her firmly onto my shoulders, I resume my slow, gentle walk back to the dorm, careful not to wake my passenger. When I return to the dorm, Makina still clinging to my back. Amane comes out to meet us with undisguised relief on her face, and for some reason, all of our other classmates are waiting in the lobby as well. Chihiru, a vaguely crappy expression on her face, peers over my shoulder at Makina, asks, "So she fell asleep after all?" in a sarcastic tone. Then proceeds to poke at the girl's flabby little cheeks, mumble, "What a hopeless kid," and break into a smile. As for Sachi, she begins by offering me a polite bow and thanks for my efforts, then carefully removes Makina's boots one at a time and puts them away in the shoe rack at the side of the door. In their place, she takes Makina's favorite pair of slippers, the so-called terrible twins, decorated with the snarling faces of two stuffed animal tigers, and slides them onto her feet. However, since the girl's still lying limp against my back, they flop right off and fall to the ground. Sachi picks them up and puts them back on. Not that it works any better the second or third time. Clumsily earnest as always. Maybe someday she'll figure out that brute force repetition doesn't compensate for a lack of strategy. Lastly, there's Sakaki. Her initial convincing show of indifference belied by a momentary glance away from the paperback in her hand. Once her eyes find Makina sleeping on my back, she snorts softly and returns her glance to the book. I think it's safe to say she was fairly concerned about Makina too, in her way. It's about 10 minutes after this little scene when the girl finally wakes up. Her eyes blink open in my bed, where I tossed her soundly slumbering body as a temporary measure, and quickly find the large sack of melon buns sitting next to her pillow. Squirming out of the bed, she grabs the bag and scampers off to distribute them to the other residents of the dorm. Amane and Sachi express their heartfelt thanks in voices choked with tears. Michiru offers, "Well, I don't dislike melon buns," managing to convey sincere gratitude despite the standard veneer of arrogance. Even Sakaki softly closes her book with a quiet, "I see," stares Makina straight in the face, says, "I'll accept that gratefully, then." And he proceeds to dig into the pastry right then and there. I'm honestly a little surprised at first, but come to think of it, I guess that's sort of her style. In summary, Makina's first day of part-time work, the subject of so much angst and anxiety, has come to a peaceful conclusion. And that evening, Sakaki graciously allows Makina and Amane to take the first bath. The moment the girl's out, she runs down to the lobby where I've been waiting for my turn. Then drops herself onto my lap with a solid thump and turns to face the television set.
風見さんの膝の上はもうすっかりマキちゃんの指定席になってしまいましたね。
As I answer Sachi's teasing comment with a wry smile, Makina grabs the remote control from the table. She then flips to the channel for her favorite show. Chuckling softly, Sachi places a glass of diluted Calpis in front of Makina, then makes a swift exit. Probably gone off to tidy up the mess Makina made in the bath before Sakaki takes her turn. The girl really is quite the attentive servant. Just as Sachi's disappearing up the stairs, Amane enters the lobby in the process of removing her apron.
なんかさ、そうしてると本当の親子みたいよ。
Oh. For her part, the way Amane is striking up conversation with freshly washed tableware in her hands is also oddly domestic. She's the very image of a housewife. Do I look that old? Let's go with siblings instead.
なんつうの、妙に老成しているあんたと年齢の割に育ちの悪いマキナ、その辺のギャップが原因じゃないかな。
You really think we look like father and daughter? Now, with this pronouncement, Amane heads back to her room with a stack of clean plates. Who are you calling Crescetti, punk? You really think we're starting to look like a family? In the first place, it's not like I've experienced the world thoroughly enough to start passing judgment on whippersnappers. Surely Makina's unusually childish behavior is the more relevant factor. A good case in point, the girl's currently guzzling down a sweet, milky drink, mesmerized by the glow of the television screen, completely oblivious to the world around her. It occurs to me that if you cut out this one moment in time, it'll look like a pretty happy little game of house. Honestly, I'm startled at my own behavior. Even though I understand that this is ultimately nothing more than a make-believe game, I can't seem to help surrendering myself to its lukewarm comforts. Are you enjoying yourself right now, Yuuji?
Papa! デイブ教授始まったよ
So it is. What's the good professor doing battle with today? The professor in question is the host of the American documentary show. Ooh, Professor Dave's Amazing Animals, a man by the name of David McAllister. Huh. This fearless individual apparently puts his life on the line on a weekly basis to provide his audience with reports on various dangerous animals, a formula that's proved highly popular with his audience of bloodthirsty children.
キッズたち、今日の特集は先週予告したようにサメの特集だ。
Clad stylishly in the tough survival gear of a seasoned adventurer, a Hawaiian shirt and cargo shorts, Professor Dave strides confidently along a beach. Telling the kids in front of their TV sets all about sharks in a cheerful, enthusiastic monologue periodically interrupted by voiceovers that seem to be strategically covering up some overly frank observations. That was a mouthful. Where's the TV in this room anyway? I don't see any TV anywhere.
餌場の問題でサメが海水浴場に姿を見せることも珍しいことではなくなった。 せっかくの楽しいサマーバカンスがサメのせいで台無しになったら大変だ。そこで今日の僕はテレビの前のキッズがサメに噛まれた時の対処法を実験、ここシャークワールドセンターにやってきたのさ。
Behind Professor Dave, equipped for his mission with flip-flops and a straw hat, an image of a large building appears with the words Shark World Center in bold red letters. A voiceover informs us that the center of is an institution that looks after injured sharks who find their way into shallow coastal waters, helping them to heal and return to the sea. Soon, the scene switches to Dave peering down into a massive water tank, where a great white shark that appears to be a good 5 meters in length quietly glides to and fro. And, as always, Professor Dave starts saying some crazy stuff. Every time I watch this show, I end up thinking, isn't anyone going to stop this guy? This week is no exception, as Dave promptly leaps into the shark tank with the bleeding, raw carcass of a cow clutched to his chest. Whoa. Yeah, let's not try. As a on cue, a disingenuous warning clearly inserted by some long-suffering network lawyer flashes across the bottom of the screen. Hey kids, never try this at home. That's a promise with Professor Dave. Then again, I sort of feel like any kid stupid enough to try and imitate this stunt should be firmly roped to a hospital bed in the first place. Seconds after Dave hits the water, the great white slowly turns its massive head in the direction of bloody carcass, then begins to steadily home in on the smell. The professor holds out the slab of raw meat to the approaching predator, who promptly takes a violent bite, beginning the experiment. What? Professor Dave demonstrates by launching a vigorous rain of blows on the thrashing itch diagoid. His hearty battle cry is partially drowned out by a series of electronic bleeps. Soon enough, he's beaten the beast into ignominious retreat. Right in the horns, whatever that is.
賢くなったのよさ。やっぱデイブ教授はすげえな。
This show's as over the top as ever. But in the man's defense, Professor Dave's Amazing Animals isn't just selling cheap thrills. The latter half of the program always transitions to a serious, emotional animal story of some sort. In fact, you could call the extreme experiments in the first part of the show bait Dave uses to get the kids' attention, with the real heart of the program coming in the latter half. Even the professor, currently flashing a tearful victory sign to the screen, puts aside his cocky persona in the second half of the program, talking gently with an earnest expression on his face. The mini-documentary this week tells the story of a fawn that lost its parents at a young age. The camera traces the animal's struggle to get by on its own after its mother and father are eaten by lions. But in the end, it too dies, never having been taught the skills necessary to survive. Fairly harsh stuff, really. Oh no. Still clutching the empty glass of Calpis in one stubby little hand, Makina stares intently at the screen, watching the little deer's final moments so quietly she almost seems to be holding her breath. What? No, I'm not. We're just watching TV. All of a sudden, the cheerful girl on my lap is hitting her head miserably, fat tears rolling over her cheeks. It's just a TV show, girl. They're not tears of pity for the doomed fawn on the television set. They're the selfish, fearful tears of a child comparing her own circumstances with those of that starving, lonely animal. She repeats the words, her quavering voice pressing me for an answer. It's not like I can possibly guarantee that. No matter what I promise the girl today, I'll die when it's my time to die. Yeah, and yet, don't worry, I won't die. From what I read in those documents, Makina saw her own father die before her eyes when she was just a child. So I have no choice but to speak these words. Even if they're groundless, irresponsible lies, there's just nothing else I can do. There's just nothing else I can do. Do I look like I'm going to kick the bucket that easily? I'll keep you safe, and I won't die no matter what. You have my word on that. Oh. Yeah, that's a promise. But the words alone don't seem enough to earn her trust. Makina gulps down a big shuddering breath and bites her lower lip, the tears still sliding down her face. Come on, seriously? How do I get you to stop crying? Crap, you little twerp. Where the heck did she pick that up? Wait, as if I really have to ask. I turn my eyes upward in disgust, trying to burn a hole through the ceiling to where Amane is no doubt humming obliviously and putting away her dishes. Alright, Makina, close your eyes. Standing the girl in front of me, I wait for her eyes to fall shut, then grab her firmly around the ears with both hands and bite vigorously into her head. Men are all wolves. Play around too much and you'll get eaten right up. My point made, I resume grinding my teeth against Makina's scalp. Even as I gnaw away at her cranium, Makina flings up her arms in desperate resistance. Poorly developed as she may be, the girl isn't a child, and although she obviously wasn't intending a full force attack, one punch just so happens to land nicely on the bridge of my nose. Ow, darn it, you little punk! Is your vision going already? We're playing the Men Are All Wolves game, obviously. Because I'm a wolf. Don't ask me. Maybe that's just how tsunderes are. Have to agree with you there. By the time our little routine finally winds down, the hour hands crawled past 10. Makina keeps watching television for a while after Professor Dave signs off, but soon enough she's nodded off in my lap. Her soft body, now completely slack against mine, is weirdly warm as always. Wish the girl could turn down her body temperature a little. Hold on to her too long and you end up overheated.
マキナ寝ちゃった？
Yeah, I guess I'll go carry her to the room and dump her in bed. When I lift Makina up off me, her head flops over like an infant's, limbs dangling down like the feelers of some torpid jellyfish. Darn it. The girl's too limp. I can't get a decent grip.
マキナは子供の頃バレエを習っていたらしいから、それが原因じゃない？
Ballet. I guess it's not surprising that the daughter of a filthy rich family might get a few lessons. Actually, Makina's a lot more agile and quick on her feet than you might expect. If she was trained in ballet as a kid, that might more or less explain it. Whoops. As I finally managed to hoist Makina up into my arms in the classic bridal carry, one of her stubby little hands clutches tightly at my shirt. Seems to be an unconscious reflex, since the girl herself is still thoroughly out of it.
掴まれちゃったね。それ下手すると30分は話してもらえないわよ。無理やり引き剥がそうとすると泣き出すし。
Fantastic. Guess I don't have any choice but to stay next to her until she falls asleep for real then.
そのまま一緒に寝ちゃえばいいんじゃない？
Can you not say things like that so casually? And while you're at it, do me a favor and stop teaching Makina weird crap. Girl tried this. I'll stop crying if you kiss me. Number out on me. It sounded exactly like you, Amane.
いやね、またそうやって人聞きの悪い。私は別に何も教えてないわよ。
Makina's brain is like a sponge, remember? Have to be careful or she'll pick up that nonsense before you know it. What's so funny?
なんか本当に父親みたいね。
In what respect?
キスしてって言われて戸惑っちゃうところとか？
That was just a common sense reaction to the situation.
じゃあ私がキスしてって言ったらどうする？
Take out my wallet and ask how much.
さすがの私もお金なんか取らないわよ。キスぐらいタダでさせてあげるのに。
There's no such thing as a free lunch.
もう育児なし。
It's worked out for me so far. I carry my floppy burden to Amane's room on the second floor and deposit it on my bed. On the bed. Yes. On Amane's bed. Just as I was warned. A good 30 minutes passed without Makina's death grip on my clothes weakening in the slightest. When the girl finally sinks into full-fledged sleep, her hand slips free. Seizing my chance, I quietly rise from her bedside and return to my room. This is just so cute in some weird way. When women are in a bad mood, they eat nothing but salad for breakfast. A simple, valuable rule of thumb I learned it from my time with GB. Every once in a while, she'd stumble bleary-eyed into the room in her favorite cow print pajamas, scratching at her shaggy head. She'd then narrow her already menacing eyes to dagger-sharp slits and mumble, "Just salad for me." Of course, we're talking about Haridari Yuria here, a personage renowned as Queen Hysteria in her professional life. In deference to that noble title, on such mornings I would quietly resolve not to oppose her. But for some reason, we always ended up fighting anyway. Quite the mysterious phenomenon.
何よ、人の顔じっと見て。
Nothing in particular. Maybe blonde women are just cranky in the mornings by default, but then again, I guess Mature is always more or less like this. Even if I went out of my way to be kind and solicitous now, she'd probably interpret it as condescension and flip out. That said, telling her to stop snarling at me for no reason probably wouldn't be productive either. Much less remarks to the effect of, go get wet for once, why don't you? Or your womb's going to shrivel up unless you get a little attention. In my experience, such frank but well-intentioned advice is met only with a flash of lightning like wrath from above. In other words, the only winning move in this game is not to play. As my predecessor once put it, noble men and hysterical women will have their way. Don't get too worked up about it. And I've never had cause to doubt the soundness of her judgment in this matter. Accordingly, while the question, why the heck is this girl eating breakfast in my room, may be floating through my mind at the moment, I judge it wisest to maintain my silence. A little more? Okay. Look, I didn't say a word. Someone please explain to me why blonde women all say the same darn things. You'd think they were all reading from one script. Don't tell me there's some sort of little red book for blondes secretly circulating among the fair-haired population, and they're all living in accordance with its teachings. In other words, Sachi predicted that the moment she left the dorm, you'd go sponge off Amane like the helpless freeloader you are. Seems the girl knows you well. I see. Freakishly enough, I can remember JB once saying exactly the same thing. At this point, I'm about ready to wonder if that secret instruction manual really does exist. But if so, cheer, my friend, I foresee trouble in your future. I see you drunk on cheap sake, lazily slapping together some home cooking, then coercively demanding, well, delicious, huh? It's delicious, right? Of your victims. On top of it all, I see you passing out on the sofa without bothering to put away the dishes or clean the kitchen. Yes, I'm afraid there's a good chance you're going to become a complete nuisance of a woman.
るで未来を見てきたかのように。ああ、そういえばみちる、あんた前にそんなことあったよね。確か料理漫画に影響されたかなんかで急に「今日は私がご飯作る」って言い出したかと思ったら、キッチンをぐちゃぐちゃにしてくれたじゃん。でもちゃんとハンバーグ作ったじゃない。みんな美味しい美味しいって食べてたじゃない。まあみちるが作ったにしちゃ美味しかったけど、でも付け合わせのポテトサラダ作ったの私だし、あんたがぐちゃぐちゃにしたキッチンを片付けたのはさっちゃんよ。でも料理はちゃんとできてたでしょうが。いいみちるちゃん、お料理ってのはお片付けも含めてお料理なのよ。家に帰るまでが遠足だって学校で教わらなかった？つむの弱い子に優しく解いて聞かせるみたいに言うな。
Come now, Amane. I think you've made your point. In any case, it's interesting to hear that Michiru really can't cook. I'd like to try that Salisbury steak myself sometime.
そうちょっとユージ、あんたはまたそうやって社交辞令的なこと言ってこの場を丸め込もうとして。もしみちるがその気になって「今日のお昼私が作る!」とか言い出したらどう責任取るつもりよ。今日はさっちゃんもいないし私だって忙しいのよ。ちょっとあまねえ、あんたちょっとは私に気を使って言葉選びなさいよ。
So anyway, where Sachi wandered off to first thing in the morning.
聞いてないの？今日は神社でお祭りがあるからさっちゃんはその準備に出かけてるのよ。
Oh. A festival, is it? When I was cutting through the area around the shrine on my run with Makina this morning, I did hear the sound of a group practicing with flutes and drums or something. They must have been rehearsing for the main event. Now that you mention it, Makina kept yelping, "Summer Festival!" and "Don Dance" this morning. I assumed that was more of a cryptic nonsense and ignored it, but I guess she must have meant Summer Festival and Bond Dance.
そういうこと。商店街でもお祭りをやるからさっちゃんは広場に櫓とかテントを建てるの手伝いに行ってるし。マキナはパン屋さんが出すチリドッグの屋台を手伝いに行ってる。私もこの後子供会で無料配布する豚汁を作りに行くの。
Oh, pretty admirable contributions to your town for such an insolent bunch. Not bad.
まあね、埋め立て地とはいえ美浜もこの地域の一員だしね。
Well, I firmly approve of putting down roots in the broader community. Let me rephrase that. If we don't pitch in with this sort of straightforward community service, Mihama will probably get a reputation as some secretive school where God knows what goes on. I mean, it's not like our budget's coming out of the public coffers, so I doubt we'd get protesters with placards hurling eggs over the gate, but still putting a little effort in PR can't hurt. Into PR.
何よ、それじゃあ何もしてない私が悪者みたいじゃないのよ。
I wasn't really implying anything. I mean, it's not like Sakaki's doing anything either, right?
ああ、榊さんはほら、お祭りのスポンサーになってるから。行けばわかると思うけど、商店街の街灯全部に盗品グループの旗がいっぱいぶら下がってるよ。金だけ出しておけばいいってもんじゃないでしょうに。それにグループの代表として午後から始まるのど自慢大会の審査員をやってくれないかって商店街の会長さんに頼まれたみたいでさ。最初は断るつもりだったらしいけど、結局断りきれなくて引き受けちゃったから暇じゃないと思うわよ。ヌーじゃないわよ。あんたも暇なら手伝いに来なさいよ。子供会の仕事は山ほどあるわよ。綿菓子作って配ったり、引換券持ってきた子にお菓子の詰め合わせあげたり。今年は金魚すくい券もあるから金魚屋のお姉さんやるとかね。
But you're in one of those light blue happy coats might work for you. Yeah, go for the goldfish lady. You're a blonde, so the coloration works, and somehow I can really picture you as a Carney's daughter.
あんた、それ褒めてるようで褒めてないでしょ。
No, no. Selling chicks that cost practically nothing to dumb kids really does seem like it would suit you. Or maybe you're running one of those semi-fraudulent die-cutting stalls where the prizes are entirely at the owner's discretion.
あんたバカにしてるでしょ。私のことバカにしてるでしょ。まあまあ、暇なら後で私と一緒に手伝いに行こうよ。ね。分かったわよ。どうせ暇だしね。子供は嫌いだけど手伝ってあげるわよ。ユージはどうする？
I've got nothing to do either, so I'll help out if there are any jobs where a little physical power might come in handy. じゃあ、さっちゃんの方を手伝ってあげてくれる？矢倉組とか大変そうだし。Roger。そんじゃ、とっととご飯食べて出かけようか。みちる、パンと牛乳のおかわりは？美味しいでしょ、そのパン。美味しいわよ。おかわりがあるならもらいたいわよ。なんで怒ってるのかさっぱりわからないけど、ちなみにそのパン、マキナが焼いたんだよ。ブホーってマジで？私昨日パン焼き器買ってさ、今朝マキナが生地をもっちゃもっちゃこねて早速焼いてみたんだけど、これがまあ結構美味しいのよね。 Awesome.
所詮は機械の性能じゃない。私だって機械があれば美味しく焼けるわよ。
Yeah. You're right about
でも
that.
マキナもあんたと違ってちゃんとキッチン片付けていったわよ。うぐーじゃねえぞ。
So, having partaken of our morning repast, we immediately head out to assist the local festivities, with Yuuji and Amane joining the event staff for the Children's Festival. It's probably completely dark right now. They proceed to brandish sticks at a group of innocent neighborhood children gathered in short-sleeved happy coats. This forced these little captives to parade through the town, dragging a float that must be over 3 tons in weight. A seemingly meaningless exercise in sadism, roughly equivalent to the classic dig a hole and fill it back up again number, does serve a certain purpose. Namely, helping these impressionable youths understand it's pointless to resist adults and providing them an early introduction to the carrot and stick principle that ultimately governs our world. Okay. Still, from what I hear, Amane proved extremely popular with the kids, especially the older grade school boys. Most likely, a few local children were given a jump start on the road toward puberty, internalizing the sad law that governs our gender: obey the breasts. Awesome. In the meanwhile, my spur-of-the-moment assistance was directed toward the area reserved for the bond dance, where apparently they were eager for male help. I hurried to the plot of land being used for the purpose, still in my uniform. There, I discovered Sachi in full maid dress just to fight the brutal heat, swinging a scythe around like a grim reaper made flesh. Straightening from her labors, she offered me a deep nod, the words, "Thank you for coming," spoken in the tone of a commander at Luzon greeting his reinforcements. And a sickle of my own, politely pressing me into immediate service. The tower for the dance itself was already standing tall in the middle of the plot, and the neighborhood council's tents had been set up. The only pressing business remaining was mowing down the weeds on the edges of the area. My allies in this task, apart from the indomitable maid already mentioned, included older ladies in sweatpants with towels wrapped around their head to ward off the sun. And here and there, a few younger housewives in fashionable sports gear and sun visors, looking as though they'd just wandered out of a yoga class. A wise man once said, "Our nation's greatest national security threats are the weeds that keep sprouting up in our maneuvering grounds no matter how many darn times we cut them down," or so I'm told. But it seems as though this invasion of thick wild grasses hasn't confined its intolerable aggression to military targets. We have a word for those who invade our territory. Enemies, watched over by the blazing hot gaze of the sun, I quietly lose my sight in devoted pursuit of the national interest. Although I have my doubts about this slapdash approach of readying the venue on the day of the event itself. After about 2 hours of reaping, we've got ourselves a perfectly respectable venue for a bond dance. Alright, is all that ready? Awesome. That's good for this part. I know that was a lot. That dragged on a little long, but yeah, that's all I'll read for this one. There we go. Done. Bye.